Hey, we're live. I wanna love you and treat you right. Let's see where the people are at. We are live. We're together, people. We got a roof on our head. Hey, check in. Where the people at? Now we ain't for the people then. Okay, this is great. Hey, community debate, we are back. Just waiting for the people to check in. Hey. Listen, you can't beat Bob Marley. I swear. It doesn't matter how many years later that tune come out, but every time you have Bob Marley playing, you feel nice, right? Yeah. Bob Marley, nice. You feel good. That's why I say heart and soul. Oh. I mean, reggae. So today is going to be quite a deep one, people. I'm waiting for everyone to check in, but today is going to be a very, very deep one. So the first thing that I want to speak about today is about a family member, who was murdered in a racist attack. Now, you know, Nathan is on the panel, and Nathan is my son's uncle. And when he was younger, him and his brother tried to escape a set of racists who tried to harm them. But unfortunately, Rolan didn't make it. And his 30th anniversary memorial, they're going to have this Sunday. And people don't realize the trauma that this causes. Even I was speaking to Nathan the other day, and even on the march for Roland, Stephen Lawrence was actually on the march for Roland. And imagine a little bit after that, he ended up being also a victim of these nasty individuals. This is a very, very painful and sore subject. You know what I mean? And plus to see my family as well feeling pain, it pains my heart. You know, my son never got to see his uncle, you know, because of some disgusting people took him away. Who've never really been held to justice for nothing. I don't know, Nathan, would you like to speak, you know, a little bit about this to everybody out there in community debate, because this is a really serious subject.
What about the night or about the aftermath? What do you want?
Whatever you want to start first.
Well, to be honest with you, be straight. At the moment, even to this day, it's 30 years, yeah? Mm-hmm. And I'll be honest with you, look, I've spent like literally the last probably 3 days very tearful, very angry, and very like just all over the place, to be quite fair. My brother, literally, I suppose everyone would say there's probably the same things about a dearly departed one, but my brother was a unique individual, you know, very talented, very mature. You know, he taught me how to read when I was 7 years old. You know, he taught me himself. He was 8 at the time. You know, he was very charismatic, you know, and very grounded, very mature, and a very understanding individual. Even to this day, I can't actually believe that he was only 15 years old. That's how tall his stature was and his persona. But going on to the night, literally, we just went out for the evening, to a youth club in Thamesmead, you know, and on the way there we had different friends, but you know, we kind of separated for a bit, went to see our different friends, and then I got to the youth club, and he was telling me that these guys just came outside the youth club and telling him that he's not welcome in the area, that it's a Ku Klux Klan area, and that he needs to go home. But you know, we lived in Brixton, so we lived in Brixton prior to moving to Thamesmead, which is it's just a massive culture shock, to be quite fair. It's like being in the hot sun and then jumping in a cold bath, so to speak. It's just couldn't understand that a place like this actually existed, like where there were no black people. You know, probably I lived in a bubble, but you know, Brixton, you got Asian, black, white, and all people, all nationalities there. You know, and honestly, growing up for me, I didn't know racism at all. I didn't even know it existed. You know, I went on a school journey one year, and someone called me a nigger, and I didn't even know what it was. I didn't even bat an eyelid. It was only maybe about 6 months later when I came home, and my uncle was saying about, know something about, because he had his daughter was light skinned, but he was saying that she had real nigger hair, and it's only then I put two and two together and I thought, hold on, I got it. You know, these people actually being racist, and it was like a family that stood around me when I went to Wales and was saying nigger, 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 and I thought that they were just illiterate people because I don't know what that is, you know. But anyway, moving to Thamesmead, um, I was called many different racist names, to be quite fair. But once again, it took me a while to actually realize that they were being racist. It didn't really affect me because I had great people around me that instilled great things, and I wasn't exposed to scumbags like this, so to speak. But anyway, moving forward, yeah, he told me that these people told him that it's a Ku Klux Klan area. He's not welcome here. He needs to go home. We thought it was a joke, to be quite fair. You know, it's just the way that we were. We never really took things serious. But anyway, on leaving the youth club, we got to the bus stop, and we were surrounded by about maybe 18 to 19 people. It possibly could have been more. And then I didn't feel like anything would happen for some reason, because it was just surreal. And without in a blink of an eye, my brother just started sprinting like manically, and I was kind of in shock. I didn't understand what he was doing. I felt like asking him, "What are you doing?" And then I was literally just still standing there for a moment, and then he turned to me while he was holding his neck, and he said to run. So obviously, my big brother telling me what to do or saying something, I'm gonna listen straight away. But what my thing was is that he kind of ran up um, a flyover where it's like a dual carriageway, and he was being chased by quite a few of these boys. But me knowing my brother, I know that he can run. We could run, you know, because we played football. I was a professional. I had a schoolboy contract with Wimbledon at the time. We were like in peak condition, so I knew no one ain't gonna catch him. So I thought I'm not gonna run behind him because I don't want him to have to turn around and chase me. So I ran in the same direction as him, but underneath the flyover. And because I knew the area quite well, it's literally about a mile to the other side. So both of us would have met up on the other side. I don't know how long it would have taken, maybe 6 minutes, 5 minutes. I don't know. It wouldn't have taken that long. So I'm there sprinting. I've got half of the pack chasing me, calling me nigger. We're going to kill you. But I knew they weren't going to catch me, and I was just thinking, I need to get to the other side as quickly as possible just to meet up with my brother so he knows that I'm all right. And the strange thing about me and my brother was that, me and Rolan, is that we had I would say I don't know if it's a gift because I believe that many people do have it. I didn't necessarily need to talk to him about things for him to know exactly what I meant or what I had done or how I was feeling. So I knew that he knew that I'd be on the other side and he wouldn't need to worry. So I've got to the other side and I'm calling for him and I don't see him. So then I'm thinking, what's going on? Where is he? But so I've tried to run. I've run all the way round. Like I said, it's a mile. I've calculated it because I'm writing a biography about it. So it's over a mile that I've run, and then he's not there. So I've ran round the other side, but up the flyover so I can find where he is on the other side. And I've run over, and then there's a bus that's come past, and people are calling me on the bus. So I've had to run back. They've told me my brother's lying at the top of the flyover. And I'm thinking to myself, how the hell is this guy lying at the top of the flyover? Like, it doesn't make any sense. It's just confusion for me. So I've sprinted up to the top and I'm like enraged like right now because obviously this is my brother and things are not making any sense. I've reached the top of the flyover and there's police already at the top of this flyover, which I just didn't understand it. And my brother's lying literally in a pool of blood. And they were telling me I have to stay here and whatever the case may be, but I'm not listening to what these guys are saying. This is my brother right there. I don't know these strangers. So I've ended up having to fight these police officers and I don't understand even now to this day. One of them just said, just let him do whatever he needs to do. And I was 14 years old at the time. And so my brother's lying in just a massive pool of blood and I've just turned him over. I've laid over him and I never thought he would have died, in all honesty. And I've laid over him. I was talking to him, but as time is going on, I don't know. It just didn't feel right. It didn't feel right at all. And it was like after about maybe it felt like 40 minutes, an ambulance came. And it was only when they lifted my brother off the floor that I realized how bad the injury was. It was just like, I'd never forget it. And it was just like the sound of the blood hitting the floor, the way they just ripped him off the canvas. I instantly went into shock because I was thinking, what the fuck is going on here? And from that point, it was like, I was just in shock. They were trying to resuscitate him, giving him an electric shock. But I felt like I was literally a fly on the wall looking down over us because it was just so horrendous. But we got to the hospital anyway. And then they put me in this room and I'm waiting to see my brother. It's still not registering that he's really injured because I know my brother full of life, powerful, mentally and physically, And we got to the hospital and then these nurses come out and they're crying. And I'm thinking, what the fuck's going on here? Why are they crying? They don't know me. They don't know my brother. Why are they crying? And then one of them said to me that your brother has died. And I was confused, very confused, because my brother's not going to die. My brother doesn't die, And it was only when I went in to see him and I touched his face that I knew that he had died. And it was at that moment, like I tried to run from the hospital because I didn't want the police to, because obviously I knew that I would have to be interviewed or whatever. But I didn't want to be interviewed. I wanted to find out who these guys were, and I tried to run out the hospital, but they already had police there, and they like kind of tackled me. They were pretending like they weren't police, but as I tried to run, they literally just tackled me and restrained me. So leading up until this, we got to the police station. Fast forward a bit, and the police were adamant that I caused this. I was the reason why my brother got killed. Nobody would kill your brother for no reason. You done something. Tell us what you did. Tell us whose blood you're covered in. We know you're lying to us. We know you're guilty. We know that you've hurt someone because you're covered in blood. And they were adamant that I had caused injury to someone. you know, and it was just probably the worst reality check I've ever had in my life, you know. I had these guys. I was covered in my brother's blood. I mean, from head to toe, I was covered in his blood, and we had to collect these records because we recently came back from Jamaica at the time, and I collected these records. There was quite a few, and I remember when I found my brother, there was these records just scattered everywhere and covered in blood, and I picked them up one by one, and I had them under my jacket, like it was like a bomber jacket, but you could fold over the inside, and it was like you had like a lining that you could put things in, like so. I was carrying the records in there, and then at one point they all just fell out, and it's when I saw the blood on these records that things started to become reality, so to speak. And fast forward in a while, they obviously let me go at some point, but I I was harassed after this for months leading up until my brother's trial. I was stopped by police. I was fitted up for robberies, burglaries. Even at one point they said I robbed a teenage girl at gunpoint for what I had no idea what a teenage girl would have that I would really need to rob her by gunpoint with in the first place. But they even said I had a golden gun. Like it just got silly, the stuff that they were saying. I was continuously in police station. I was continuously being attacked on the street. These people wanted to kill me. They'd put death threats out for me. But the only thing is they couldn't kill me. They couldn't break me mentally, you know. And the police, they continuously used to stop me. Even now I still remember the guy's name, like the guy's badge number and everything. And one time they really tried to like scare me shitless. But the thing is, I lost my brother, and I didn't really give a fuck about anything. To be fair, nobody could intimidate me. Nobody could make me scared. Nobody could threaten me with death because I would be with my brother. It didn't bother me. It just made me like, I want to say hard as nails. It just made me mentally, nothing registered. I just didn't care. I really didn't care. And we were continuously attacked on the street. We had to fight for our life on many different occasions. I even remember once that we got chased in Thameswood. I'll never forget the day. And I was with like a family member, my older cousin, and I had to beg him to keep running because if they'd have caught us that day, they would have really done somebody problems. And we were running. We started to run when it was daytime, and I'm not even making this up. And by the time we'd finished, it was dusk. It was night. We ended up in some woods. It was like every time we outran one car, another car would come, and then another car would come. And as we're running through the area where I used to live, my school friends, they were all saying, "Nathan, I'm really sorry, we can't help you," because I'm running past their houses, and nobody's letting us in. And I'm asking to come in, bearing in mind because I know what time it is with these people. But anyway, fast forwarding the day of my brother's trial, and they haven't succeeded in giving me a criminal record because all it was to discredit my name so that my testimony wouldn't hold up in court. And then I've got on the stand, and by this time, I'm not even gonna lie, I was broken. I'm telling you. But I'm not giving up. So I've got to the stand, and they got this picture of my brother on the morgue table, just literally like positioned in a way where no one else could see except myself. And by this time, I couldn't even look anyone in the eyes. Like I was that traumatized. I used to walk with my head down. And they had my picture of my brother on the morgue table. That was the last effort that they had to try to discourage me from giving my testimony. And I saw that picture and it just made me so angry. It made me so mad to know that these bastards, yeah, would treat two children like this. I was 14 years old. My brother was murdered at the age of 15. And you got grown ass men chasing me down on the street, police officers, trying to um trying to harass me, fitting me up, physically abusing me on the street. Like, I just didn't understand where these people came from, these Neanderthals. I just didn't understand how any any adult could treat a child like this. Forget about the color of their skin. How can an adult be comfortable in dealing with a child in this fashion? It was just beyond me. It was really beyond me. And I just said, I'm going to testify. I'm going to testify. And at that moment, they said, we're going to adjourn the trial. And when I came back, they refused to hear my testimony. I didn't even get an option to testify after all of that. I didn't even get an option to testify. And the thing is, there was, like I said, about 18 people that were involved in this assault and murder of my brother, you know, and they had the cheek. One got charged with murder, which I'm always going to be grateful for. But the rest, they only charged 5 others for public order offences. Public order offences. My brother's dead. Yeah, my brother's dead. And they get charged with public order offences. And then they dropped it to some misdemeanor. And they didn't even get any jail time. They got community service. Like, 5 of them got community service. And the other 12, nothing at all. So 1 got charged with murder. 5 got public order offences. They didn't even do any jail time whatsoever, you know. And more to the point, the trial was a fiasco. Like, I testified saying who I saw chasing my brother, and they turned it into a circus, because the guy that they saying stabbed my brother wasn't the guy that they described in the documents, because I had all the court documents. And I was in the process. I am still looking to bring this back into bring it back into a retrial. So I had all the court documents. This is how mad these people got this is how mentally unstable these people got me, right? Because I knew the tactics that they were doing, I asked my solicitor for the court documents, and I read through everything, including the autopsy, everything, because I felt that I needed to expose myself to everything before these bastards did it to me. So I needed to prepare myself for anything that they could throw at me. And this is how a 14-year-old mind was thinking at the time. I was there reading through my brother's autopsy, reading through the weight of his brain, the weight of his heart, just to make sure that I could not be phased by any of this bullshit that they would try to throw at me in the trial. You know, this is how my mind is set. And to be honest with you, it's my mind is not like that now, but it affected me for so long that I was paranoid for years, which is justified because they've admitted that they were spying on us for years or later. You know, there is actually a trial that we are involved in at the moment, where we're trying to find out just to exactly what level they were spying us at, you know. But moving forward, yeah, the superintendent that was in charge of the case is also the same dude that's in charge of Stephen Lawrence's case. And once again, fiasco, you know. The similarities between my brother's case and Stephen's case are uncanny. Oh shit, my battery's dead. I've been on Zoom for too much all day. But yeah, it's uncanny. They done the same. They messed about with Stephen's case. There's so much evidence in Stephen's case that could easily have convictions. But but in regards to Stephen's case, there's a lot that the public don't actually know. There's a conspiracy in Stephen Lawrence's case. There's a big conspiracy, you know, and the only reason why it never really came to light is because there are a lot of powerful people in positions in the Metropolitan Police and in the criminal underworld. you know, and I don't think a lot of people really know that there are there's a lot going on that it doesn't even make sense going into, because I can't physically prove it, because obviously these people are one step ahead of us. But at the time when Stephen was even murdered, a car full of the guys that were involved in my brother's murder were actually driving past at the very same second that Stephen was stabbed. You know, it's proven in court, but it's circumstantial evidence. They couldn't even entertain a conversation with these guys, you know? So my thing is this, right? Institutionalized racism is so deep and it's so embedded in our society that the day it's proven, there are going to be so much people going to be held accountable, because it's embedded in the DNA of everything that we live and breathe in this society that we live in at the moment, and not just in this society, around the world. And people need to understand that you may feel that you're in control of your life, or you may feel, well, I'm not saying that you're not happy, because yeah, if you're happy, that's good. But there are so many things that dictate what you're doing in your life, through to taxes, down to you driving your car. You know, there's so much things that you are not even understanding, that you're not really privy to be doing certain things with taxes, and the whole society is rigged. I'm telling you. And when you are a victim, especially as a black person and a victim of a crime, you get a wake-up call, because it's then that you realize that it's not an even playing field. Even when you go for a job and stuff like that, it's not an even playing field, you know? Because, for instance, when you're applying for a job and they're asking you your ethnic background and all that bullshit, what does that have to do with you getting a job? When you're applying for a credit card, what does the color of your skin have to do with applying for a credit card? I know I've kind of gone off topic, but all of these principles are intertwined. They are intertwined. And I'll leave it at that for the time being. All right.
Wow. Well, thanks for sharing that, Nathan, man. Blessing us with that, man.
Love
That was
you,
something
bro.
that was you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that was strong of you to come and share that with us as well, man. Because boy, that's hard. And I could tell that that's something that would have probably been eating you even up to this day. Yeah. And it's
Does, bro.
wow.
I'm telling you something, yeah. I went on my lunch break because I'm working from home at the moment. I walked down to Peckham, yeah, and I was just in tears, like the whole way and the whole way back. But the thing is with me, I don't care to cry, because I don't even know how I'm feeling on a daily basis. And this is like 30 years down the line. I haven't even grieved my brother's death, because it was that traumatic. Like, imagine like you lose a loved one, and everywhere the picture of your loved one is, and then on the news they're saying that you're militants, and militants, like, my brother's dead, show some respect, you know. And then you got the whole of the racist people saying, oh, 1-0 and all that. The levels of respect is traumatic, like just the disrespect, you know. Just like someone, if, for instance, I know we all can relate to this, like somebody says, oh, your mum, you're gonna get mad. But then to know that your loved one is dead and people are being disrespectful, and they're just some weak ass people anyway. And it's like, you know in your heart that they can't really get away with this, but then society are protecting them. So you can't even go. I got banned from being in Thamesmead. The police stopped me and banned me from going to Thamesmead. That's how deep this is. I'm the victim, you know. No, I'm not looking no sympathy, but how dare you stop me and ban me from going to Thamesmead? Ban the people that killed my brother, remove them. And I'm 14 years old. So for me, it's like the trauma is on so many different levels. Not just my brother's dead. I'm trying to deal with that. But then there's the disrespect. Then there's the way that these people are treating young. And it's not just me. There was many of my friends that were treated this way. So it's like, I can't even compartmentalize what's going on or try to even address anything, because there's so much, and it's a head fuck. So sorry, I kind of went off again, but yeah.
No, it doesn't matter. Listen, you know what, Nathan? I want you to express yourself. You know what I mean? Any which way you want to, you know. I see the way how it affects you. You know what I mean? and I love you dearly. You know, it breaks my heart to see the pain. And, you know, as we was talking earlier, it just makes me wonder what, you know, people, you know, you guys would have been, you know, your brothers and your family would have been without so much of a traumatic, you know, start to you lot's life. And, you know, same thing again, my son hasn't even got an uncle because of these nasty people. Um, I can't even, I can't even put it into my mind how it feels, because by watching your pain inside me makes me inside I'm hurting because of your hurting. Um, you know, I don't think anybody on the panel, I don't think anybody watching can even understand at a little age that you're having to run away from nasty racist people, and then afterwards you're then victimized and, you know, bullied to make it so that basically they get away with murdering your brother. You know,
Yeah.
it's like as a child, how, you know, look, how can you even deal with that trauma? Because 30 years later, it's like it's yesterday. And as you know what trauma's like, trauma will still put you in the age that you had that trauma, you will automatically go back to that age every time you feel that trauma.
And
You
that's
don't,
so true. Can I just say something that you're saying to this? This is how mad it twisted up my head. And bearing in mind, these people are taking liberties with my mum, my dad, my sister, you know, and I can't do nothing. But this is how I agree with what you're saying with the age. For years, yeah, I'm talking decades. When I used to see someone with a beard and moustache, I automatically assumed they were older than me. For decades, that's how my mind was thinking. Because I wasn't getting any older in my head. Obviously, I'm maturing and stuff like that, but my outlook, the way I see people, when I saw someone with a beard and moustache, they were automatically older than me. It, and that's bizarre. It took me a while to come out of that concept.
does, and it's, as I said, it's like how do you deal with that trauma? Because I don't know, I don't know how, you know, I want you to be able to cope with it, but it's like, how do you cope with it when these people are still not, you know, you've got people walking out, they still got their families. I bet those men have still got their families,
Yeah.
kids and all of that, you know, could be all got
And
grandchildren, all you know
Yeah.
now.
yeah, you see with that, Rachel, as well. This is why I feel like, you know, they took such a lovely person and it was just pointless. I've even tried to Facebook and find some of these motherfuckers, and I see that they got like mixed race children, and I think to myself, what the fuck was it all about then? What was it all about?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's just a mess. It's a
That,
complete
that's
mess.
that's another thing. It's like, how do you go from being a murderer and being a complete racist and then murdering a young black man and then going to have mixed race children? So you're having kids with a black woman. This
I Yeah, I think there's a very it's kind of similar to that saying that there's a very thin line between love and hate. And I've often experienced, and I've said myself, that I think the ones that are generally the most racist are, you know, they've generally been the quickest to turn. I mean, in my family, we've got a saying, what you don't want to see at your front door, you'll see underneath your bed. And generally, I think, you know, that's what we're seeing here. I mean, I've
Oh,
not
jeez.
experienced sorry about the saying, but I've
No,
not
it's
experienced,
so poignant. It's very poignant. So, well
yeah,
done on that.
it's not I've never experienced anything even remotely in that stratosphere, but definitely, as well, grown up has been a predominantly white area, and I can definitely say, you know, a lot of white females that I've known have typically had racist grandparents, and those racist
Yeah,
grandparents, you
definitely.
know, they are, you know, some of them are prolific, but generally you find the older they get, and then, you know, they end up having this mixed grandchild, and they are the first to kind of hold, welcome, or acknowledge their black grandchild. So I think it depends. I wouldn't say all of them, but
No,
certainly a
not
fair
all of them.
few.
know, it's like, was it, how do we, you know, hold these people? So I know it's so long afterwards, but it's like we want justice. Do you know what I mean? So how do you think as a community we can go and fight justice for Roland? Because I don't want nobody to ever forget that Roland died. You know, he's a little boy. He was a little
Can
boy
I,
when
can I just say something? Sorry to interrupt, yeah?
Mhm.
Let me just make this clear, yeah? My brother died. Stephen Lawrence died. Rohit Dougal died. So that our children can walk safely on the streets. They didn't just die in vain, you know? They died, you know, and their death, I'm not saying it served the purpose, because it's not no sacrifice or nothing like that. But we didn't rest. My family, my mum, my dad, Audrey and Richard Adams, they put their whole lives into campaigning. They Their lives were on hold. Their finances were thrown into campaigning. They didn't think about themselves. They put so much into allowing our children. Some of our children wouldn't be safe to be walking on the streets. You know, I'm telling you this for free. It's not just somebody died. There's a lot of stuff that happened. Constantly, I used to wake up in the morning and my dad used to, or my mum used to come and say, look, such and such has died. Shall we go and see them? And I'll jump out and put on my clothes and let's go. You know, because that's all we knew what to do, is try to help, try to not make people go through what we went through. You know, so some of our children wouldn't be safe on the street if these events never happened.
But then it's the point that they still weren't held accountable. So it's like, yeah,
They
these are,
weren't.
and we stood up and fought for it. Are you sure it's just not over a period of time that people just became, you know, was it less racist where it was not acceptable not to, or it became more underground of racism? Because
Yeah.
when at one point I lived in Tamworth in Staffordshire, when, you know, I was taken from London to Staffordshire, and it was, you know, it was very racist there. You know, I got called nigger, wog. You know, they used to call me Blackie Stanley. You know what I mean? There's so much things that they used to call me. So I used to suffer racism on a daily basis. And then coming back to London, I remember there were certain areas like Eltham, as you're saying, Thamesmead, those areas where you wouldn't stay. You would just stay in the mixed of the normal South London parts, you know what I mean, Brixton, Streatham, that kind of thing, you know what I mean, because those were the safer areas. And you knew that if you went out of those areas, you knew that there was, you know, NF, everyone used to talk about NF when I was growing up. So I just think it was just a matter of moving with the times. But I still think that now racism is just put straight underneath the carpet. I think it's been hidden, right? And, you know what I mean, it's harder for them to come out and just openly stab you. I think that if they could, they would. If they could get away with it in these times, they would do it.
I think, yeah, I would definitely 100,000% agree with you. I think over time we have to look at, you know, everything, including the economy, and, you know, how these people have strategized, and like, you know, Nathan was saying earlier, you know, it's just about planning and strategy. They've become more efficient killers. I think we've moved past, I think we've moved through that era from overt racism more to covert racism, more passive, more microaggressions. But, you know, going back to what he said about, you know, the ethnicity forms, I think they've realized that covert efficient killer. It really is. And it's more psychological as well. And, you know, that's not to say that, you know, it's not, you know, it's not still happening, that there aren't people still out there, you know, suffering in that way. But it absolutely boils my blood when I see, you know, another Black person's died, and then they turn around every time we have this Black victim, you know, it immediately is followed or, you know, proceeded with gang culture, even for friends. Gangland, gang culture was part of a group of, you know, it's this, oh, it's synonymous, Black person, it must be a gang. And that right there is how they kind of get around, you know, general society kind of standing up for us or standing with us to say, you know what, you know, we really need to look at this racial imbalance and finding justice. I mean, look at Sarah Everard versus Blessing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's the same thing. And a lot of Caucasian people, like friends and, you know, people that I know, they're not even aware of Blessing's case. They're not even aware of it. Sarah Everard has not been missing for nearly as long as Blessing, you know, and she wasn't as far away as what Blessing is, but all of a sudden, you know, they managed to find her like that. They managed to find her like that. So it is possible. I do think to myself, when the police really want, and that's something that bothered me about this, you know, what happened to your family member, you know, the police were there like that, but then, you know, no one's really actually facing any kind of, you know, criminal, you know, repercussions. It's just, oh, well, it must have been this, it must have been that, because the, you know, Caucasian people would ever do anything wrong off their own back. You know, you must have instigated it somehow. You must have antagonized them in some way or some form. Never mind the fact, just the basic fact that our skin naturally, you know, antagonizes them. It naturally, you know, they are fearful of it.
100%. And you know what, as well, it's like, it's always when I listen to these even when Sharon Osbourne was talking, when she, you know, she was on, I think, one show, and she was like, oh, I'm crying, I'm the one who's going through it. And it's like, you know, the way, you know, I was protecting, I'm not a racist, but I was protecting Pierce, who is a racist, you know what I mean? So, you know, yeah. Or, you know, I mean, I can't say he's, you know, I mean, he says some racist things, you know. I think that he goes on like he doesn't has racist thoughts, but the things that he comes out with are very much to be questioned.
Yeah.
You know? And it always seems to be, oh, there's an excuse why, you know. Even there was another debate up in the group this week with Richard Blackwood and so on, and Shola, and I can't remember what the Irish guy's name is. Same thing, he's trying to dismiss everything, you know, what racism is. Oh no, it's okay. No, it's all right. What was it? Casual racism on
yeah. Nothing is casual about racism. I had this same thing. What is a race card? I mean, this isn't football out here. They don't just go around arresting people because someone threw down an imaginary card like they were in a poker game.
What do you guys think about this racist card? How do you overcome it with white people telling you about a racist card when we blatantly suffered serious racism down to the point where, you know, you've got Nathan here who was, you know, a victim of a racist attack, but managed to, you know, I mean, survive it. And unfortunately, his brother doesn't. How do we overcome this, and how do we able to stand up to these bullies that are doing this to us? Because it, you know, this could happen again.
Can I say something?
Yeah, sure. Go on.
I'm Nathan's sister. I'm not going to take off and put myself on screen. I started pulling out my braids, so I'm sure you don't want to see that.
Oh,
but Kate, just coming in on the tail end, there's just 2 points that I wanted to make. And you said about, you know, the race card and Sharon Osbourne, for this white privilege syndrome. I think for me, might be unpopular what I'm going to say, but I'm honest. I think right now we need to focus on ourselves and what we can do for ourselves, and leave white people to educate themselves and other white people. If we're in an arena where we can challenge something, yeah, we need to do that. But actually, we just need to step up, because like Nathan said, like, my parents aren't the only ones that have dedicated their lives to the cause, so it doesn't happen to other people's families. There's hundreds of people that have done this. The government do not fund these organizations. These people work their normal 9 to 5 like you guys do, and do this grassroots jobs. And I think if everyone just does their part, not everyone has to be, you know, the Malcolm X, the Martin Luther King. Not everybody has to financially give. Do you get what I mean? They might not be in a position. Your contribution might be signing the petition and, you know, putting pressure on your local MP. But everybody, all of us Black people, have power, and you need to find out what your role is in the cog and push it forward, because that is what the problem is. There's a minority, there's only a few people that are still in this because they're not getting paid for it, not big money. They might get funding here and there, but bigger than just the financial side of it. Everybody on this call, like, you're all influential people and you're woke, you know what's going on. So like I said, it might be just signing the petition. Do you see what I mean? Because like, even, you know, another point that you know, you're saying about it's more covert. In London, it's more covert, but it's not outside. You know, like Lee Jasper was supposed to be, you know, he's on a Zoom with us, he's hosting our family Zoom for the memorial on Sunday of my brother, and he had to go to Wales today because of, I don't know if any of you guys heard about Saeed Meza, but she's 22 years of age. She's got a clean record. She's a student. She works. She's on a camping site. She's 4'10", and 3 white men physically assaulted her. She's got black eye, everything, beaten up. And in her rage to defend herself, she's hurt one of them, and she's got 4 years. So this is happening now. Do you get what I mean? And it's for us to stay abreast of that and figure out how we can further support each other, support the community. And that's what my contribution is, because there is so much that we can do. And if everyone does their one little bit, no one's going to feel overwhelmed with it all. And
100%.
Well said, sis. Well said.
Because when I look at it, I agree with everything you just said. When I keep on going on about it every week, every tiny piece that we put in, it doesn't start worrying that they have to do this big massive thing. No, you just have to do one small thing, and that one small thing, with all of us putting it together, becomes one big thing. But what happens when we do nothing, right? It's just gonna be the same cycle over and over again. And I'm tired of it being where people just don't get off of their backsides and leave it to other people. And then the only time people are upset about it is when it happens to them.
Agreed. Agreed. And it's true, we have to be like that. When it's someone's mum, do you see what I mean? It's your mum. When it's someone's child, it's your child. When it's someone's sister, brother, you have to have that mentality, because when it comes to your child, you're going to want someone to roll out with you. And that's what we have to do. Like, we don't all, like, you know, I haven't traveled the world like my mum has to talk about inequality. Do you see what I mean? I haven't done the multiple interviews that my dad has done. I haven't always had to get out of bed like Nathan had to do. Sometimes I did have to go with my parents because I was under 10. So I would be going, you know, to bail out this person or to go into these family things. But even if it's just you've signed a petition, do you see what I mean? Or you've written an email, you've copied and pasted the email to your local MP. Don't underestimate how powerful that act is and how powerful you are in that moment, because it makes the world of difference for the world that you want to see, that we all want to see. 100%. We just all need to pull up our sleeves and do whatever our little part is, and it will help.
And have a shared responsibility for our community, because back in the day, like with Mark and Mex and all of those kind of people, to make movements, they didn't have like social media and all of that kind of stuff. We don't use it to our advantage. We need to have a shared responsibility for our community. If we want change, it has to start with us. Do you understand what I mean?
When Rolan died, we didn't have social media. Me and Nathan would be, you know, helping with the photocopying and using one of them. I can't even remember, a guillotine. Do you get what I mean? So it is just that we have all of these resources. You get what I mean? That's not me putting anyone on blast or anything like that. But as a community, we've got to hold each other accountable. So if you see me and you think, rah, like, sis, you can do better, pull me up and say, yo, try this or do that. We have to pull each other, we have to stand together, hold each other accountable and challenge them. Because at the end of the day, I look at it like this. The playing field, as my brother said, is rigged. So for me, all of this Black Lives Matters things, it's just tokenism. Because when you look at it objectively, if I think, you know, I've got a business, I am a business owner. And if I've made up my mind that all I want is, you know, I'm focusing on legacy, so that 20 years from now, 30 years from now, 100 years from now, my lineage are going to be fine. And all of the Black community who's involved in what I'm doing with my business are going to be fine. I don't give a damn if that's my agenda. I don't give a damn what Becky from next door is saying about how I've employed someone else over her and she's got the qualifications, because that's what's happening with us, because it's not fitting to my agenda. So let's not worry about what they're doing and build our own community. Do you see what I mean? Use their system to build up ours. Use that as the blueprint to know what we're doing, but do it in love and unison together. That's what we need to do. There's nothing else for us to do. We've been challenging them since the beginning of time, and they don't care. Like I said, that girl in Cardiff, someone else even just mentioned about Sarah over the other sister that died. Last year, them two sisters in North London, and the police were taking selfies with their dead bodies before forensics came. Like, this is been going on and is still going on. Yeah, we've got covert as well, but it's just because London's the most the most cosmopolitan city apparently in the world, why we don't necessarily see it as much. But step outside London and see what's going on. It's a madness.
Trust me, I know. As I said, I went to school from when, I got taken out of London and was in Tamworth. And as I said, I had so much racism until I got back to London. You know what I mean? Like, that was like an everyday life for me. You know what I mean? Like, I was never classed as being anything. You're just a piece of scum. You know, is it, rubber dingy lips, everything. It's like the amount of racism that I had, it was unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. And I've come back to London and I haven't turned into somebody that hates any other race. I didn't want to be like these people who are so hateful, but this is what I've urged the community to do, and that's why I have these shows and I have this platform where we can just openly say whatever we want. It annoys me, as I keep on saying, that people would rather sit there and have casual life and just do not care and say they don't care or think twice about their community when these real things are happening. Do you want these things to happen to your children and all of us here just turn around and just don't pay any attention when you're crying, right? And you're the mum and the parents that are crying that your child has been murdered, was it by these disgusting people? Do you want us to turn our backs on you, right? So why is it that you turn your back on us? Why is it you turn your back on all these people that have passed away? Why can't you contribute? What is it? What stops you as a community to contribute? I made sure I put up on a title about Roland's murder. I put it up on a title. Would you prefer to watch and listen, or would you prefer to go on to another, I don't know, debate thing, or look at something and talk about something, or talk about something which is, I don't know, was it who's doing what and what man can do this for you or what girl can do this for you? Would you prefer to listen to that instead? Would you prefer to listen to something where you're getting involved in your community because it could be your child? What happens if it's your child? Because I guarantee if it's your child, you would still want a platform with all of us talking about your child. You'd want us all canvassing out, walking down and marching for your child. So what are you doing? And I'm not trying to get at people and cuss people, but really, what are you doing? What are you
need to answer the question, though, sis, because my brother brought up the inquiry. There's no justice. You're not getting justice. The reason why Nathan and our family still haven't had the opportunity to grieve my brother is because it's been a 30-year onslaught of surveillance and racism. 30 years. 5 years ago, there was a whistleblower that used to work for the Metropolitan Police, and he was undercover and he came out. And the investigation inquiry was supposed to go to the IPC the following year. It's taken them 5 years to get to this. There's over 1 million pages worth of evidence. This conspiracy goes beyond. Roland died in the 90s. This conspiracy that we've been attached to goes back to 1968. There's more than 1 million documents, and still at this point in time, when we've had the whistleblowers and we're at inquiry stage, they only want to release 500 pages worth of evidence. This is 30 years down the line and they've been surveilling us our whole life. You can't relax, you're on edge, you're anxious, you don't know what's going on. So I'm letting you know that there's cause and effect in life. You want to sit down, you don't want to do nothing, there's a consequence to that.
100%.
So know for certain, if anything happens to your family member, this is what's going to happen. And remember, my parents have been putting in the work. The community's been putting in the work, putting on pressure. We've had the whistleblowers, and still 30 years later, we're here. So
it's also supposed to be a public inquiry, but they're not streaming it to the public. We're in the middle of COVID. They're saying that we have to either go to courts, despite people having illnesses and whatnot, and Black people being susceptible to getting COVID and dying. They won't release the information. It's a public inquiry, but they're not releasing the information to the public. It's still being covered up.
Yeah, they're covered up because they know that some of the big heads will roll, and they know that all that has been swept under the carpet, and they're protecting people's jobs. And you know, just like with the Meghan thing the other day, they don't want nothing to come out. They're trying to scoop everything under the carpet. And I understand it at the end of the day that 30 years later, you haven't got any justice. And I was speaking to Nathan earlier that you're never going to be able to rest. How is Nathan supposed to grieve? You know, he's not. How's the family supposed to grieve? You know, I mean, you can't.
We're distracted by everything else. We haven't had the opportunity, because I'm sure most people in this Zoom has lost someone. Some might be tragic, some might be illness, some might be age. And you'll know that you'll always have that sense of loss. So if it was just that and we got justice, maybe we would feel, you know, with time, we could come to real terms and grieve with that. But there's been no respite. There's been no respite straight away, because you're campaigning, and then whilst you're campaigning, they're breaking into your house, they're putting cameras in your yard, they're tapping your phones, and this has been going on for 30 odd years. We haven't even had a breathing time to. And then remember all the stuff that Nathan said. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, what I'm saying is, and what my sister's just saying about breaking into the house is fact. Like, they stole the documents for the court case. I was telling you that I've read through the autopsy and all the files from start to finish. They stole it out my flat. Like, I don't have it no more. That, it might sound very bizarre, but that I've treasured. I mean, I've treasured. I don't let nobody touch it. I don't let nobody see it. Amongst some items of my brother's clothing, that's all I treasure. I don't have no value for nothing. Money, sentimental, just that. And they broke in and they took it. Sorry, Lauren, if we can continue.
No reason to be sorry, bruv. I'm just letting everybody know, and this isn't exclusive to just us. There's so many families that this has happened to. They're under surveillance, they're breaking in the yard. You get what I mean? And we're the victims of these crimes. So that's why, like, every minority, not even just Black people, need to make up their minds. Do you want to be in a situation where if it goes tits up, you're going to have 30 years of this nonsense? Or do you want to play your role? Do your part. Everybody needs to do their part, because I'm telling you, this is what you've got to look forward to. And we've been doing it. We've been doing the work. So we're much further along than most people are. And this is still 30 years down the line. Everyone has to do their part.
And the thing is, it's like, you guys are still having to do it. You're still having to, you know, to relive the pain all the time. Do you know what I mean? It's not like when, you know, you got a family member who's died of illness and has passed away. You grieve, you know, the person's been ill, and that you even though it doesn't get easy. It's not like it's easy, or somebody's died, but you're able to have a closure and accept it. In this instance, you haven't been able to have a closure. Do you know what I mean? Like Nathan, you know, how is he supposed to move forward in his life without, you know what I mean? Because that's a trauma that brings him back to him being a child, where it's a consistent thing. He hasn't had a closure on this. He still has to keep on reliving the pain, because you're constantly having to open it up by campaigning regarding the situation, what happened to him. Do you see what I mean? It's like, all of you as a family, you know what I mean? It's been hard for all of you. As I say, it's like, I'm only on the outside of it because of, you know what I mean? Raheem didn't even get to meet his uncle. Do you know what I mean? It's like, this is what could happen to anybody's family member. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like,
Sorry,
no.
Rachel. So this is. I just want to add to this, right? If you haven't experienced many things in your life, brilliant. I'm so happy for you. But it's like there's a parallel universe, and I kid you not. Once you enter that, or once you experience something in your life that is untoward, you can never relive or regain that life or the way you saw the world again. You know? So for what I'm saying, maybe there's someone in this group that can't even believe what I'm saying is fact. And if that's the case, I'm so happy for you. But believe me, the world that we see or perceive is not what is actually going on.
Not real.
All right?
Nathan.
Yeah.
Yeah. I actually agree with you on that. As you guys have heard me say, I was born in Angola, survived the war. I went through the level of racism that Nathan has experienced. Thank God I did not see a family member of mine killed. But for 3 years, I've experienced the type of racism that is blatant, and where they spit at you, where they call you names on a regular. And the town that we lived in was mostly white, and I'm mixed race. And I witnessed Black people who were used to being called those type of names. Someone made a statement that, when you get out of London, then you see real racism and so on. And people in London, Black people in London, are kind of protected from that, from real racism. And there's a lot of truth to that. A lot of truth to that. The fact is this: racism exists. It's not going to go anywhere. It's not going to stop. Black people have to find the moral fiber that will allow them to somehow come together and somehow find a way. I mean, we always have to fight for justice. I mean, regardless, we are human beings. What else can we do? We have to fight for justice. There is, but we have to find the moral fiber that will allow us to unite so that we can find ways of protecting ourselves. Because believe you me, this won't stop. Regardless, all we can do is protect ourselves. Seriously. Right now, what I'm witnessing is Black people are being assimilated into a culture. And because I think Rachel was talking about why are we not united? How come we are not putting the work in? And, what if it happens to you? And so on and so on. And for some reason, if I'm hearing Rachel right, that's not enough to get people to turn around and say, you know what? I need to start taking this a bit more serious. And there's a reason for that, and we need to look into what those reasons are, and find out why Black people are not uniting as much as they should, in order to fight for that level of justice as they were back in the 1960s, back in the 1940s, back in the 1930s. What's the difference? What changed? Because these things clearly still happen, right?
I don't.
Sorry, I just want to get one thing out there. This idea about real racism, fortunately, I disagree. There is only one thing, racism. There's different types of racism, but there's no like real, fake, racism is racism, period. And whether you have passive, whether you have, like overt, covert, microaggressions, it all stems from the same tree. I live probably 20 minutes from London. I live in a London borough. I wasn't going to mention, but in April I'm due to attend a magistrate's court for some guy that spat on me and called me a. So this idea of outside of London, you know, you might not see it every day, but it's always there under the surface. And I think if we kind of put the blinkers on and go, oh, London's a nice, safe, cushy place, going back to exactly what Nathan said, you know, they just because they're not throwing stuff at you, spitting at you, calling you the N-word, doesn't mean they're not seeing your name on a CV and going, no, no thanks. Oh yeah, medical, well, you can go to the back of the queue. You know, that is going on throughout every industry and every sector. And I don't think anything's actually really going to happen until we get something like affirmative action. We're only just starting to see women being inducted into executive level positions in the FTSE 500. By the time we get round to having that kind of action for Black people or ethnic minorities, yeah, but I think what is poignant, we're having this discussion about what can we do? We've had tons of Black people get to elevated positions where they're in a position to actually help us and do something about it. The problem is, because of our segregation and our division, by the time that person actually makes it and they look around and they go, well, there's no one around me but one invisible, they start pulling up the ladder. And that's what happens. That is the real matter of fact. They start pulling up the ladder, and it's only when you're at the bottom level, you look around and go, well, why aren't we progressing?
Also, you know, just going back to what Nelson said about why people don't have a shared like kind of responsibility for their community. It's a government construct. They've pushed out, especially with like the Conservative government, they've pushed out capitalism. So that means like we're focused on individualism, materialism, and all of those kind of things. So whereas before people thought, okay, we'll help each other, everyone's just focused on themselves. There's like a whole lost generation, which is our parents' generation, where they thought, actually, well, I've made it, I'm middle class, I don't have to tell my children, you know, look out for each other because we've made it. But it's only when things start to affect their family, they think, well, actually, shit, my children are Black, and we've lost a whole generation and a whole sense of community.
100%.
Can I come in a minute?
Yeah, of course you can. Yeah, go on, Sheree.
Just going back to what I think it's Talitha was saying about pulling up the ladder. I don't think that's true. I think, and I can say that I don't think that's true from, I'm not saying it's not true, actually. I'm saying not in all cases, because from my own experience, quite often I've got a number of different roles that I've had through people pulling me up. And in turn, I've turned around and I've pulled other people up where I can. But I think we also need to take responsibility for the fact that some of us aren't ready to move up. The truth of the matter is, some of us are so embroiled in, I don't know if it's the trauma of racism, because today I had to describe it to a colleague as racism is like, it's like abuse, isn't it? It's emotional abuse. And with that, a lifetime of emotional abuse. And if we think about the fact that most of us as adults now have experienced racism all throughout our lives, we're talking about years of abuse. So if we think that trauma is not a part of us, is not a part of that abuse we've experienced. So I'm co-chair of the Racial Equality Network at work. And what's interesting is some people are so embroiled in the trauma they've experienced, they can't see beyond it. And they cannot progress in their careers because they can't move past what the organization has done to them. So, and in that sense, I would say to you, some people aren't ready to move up. And some people are ready to take the bull by the horns and to progress. But it's not an equal platform. But I think we've got to appreciate our race needs a lot of healing. And I don't know if that's a conversation we're ready to have.
Sheree, can I just agree with you on that point? Because Talitha tried to say something about, she doesn't like the term real racism. Talitha, if someone was to physically attack you on a regular basis, where you constantly have to fear for your life, that's what I meant by real racism. Here in this country, wait. Here in this country, here in London.
Sorry, I disagree.
Sorry, Talitha. Let me just finish my point. You can disagree with me. Here in this country, if someone is even remotely racist, or I've never been attacked in this country. I've never been, it was so different. I remember after 3 years in Portugal, I remember saying to my parents, I would rather go back to the civil war in Angola than go to England, because England just sounded even more white to me. I just wanted to go back to Angola. When I got into this country, I noticed the real difference. People were treating me with respect. People were not abusing me and talking about my color and so on. This is what I meant by real racism. Of course, does racism exist in this country? Of course it does. Is it a bit more covert? Yes, of course it is. Is it always in your face? No, it isn't always in your face. But does it happen? Of course. Is the system very racist? Of course it is. But here, I've noticed that people are more protected. So when we are talking about real racism, I'm talking about when someone fears of being physically attacked on a daily basis. That's what I meant by real racism.
Can I just say something here? I've lived in London all my life, but there was a time when I moved to Kent where it's predominantly white. And in that time, my younger brother was in a pub and he was set alight. It was a racist attack. He was set alight. They threw alcohol on him and they set him alight. He's alive, he's okay. But it's just the fact that you don't know what could happen at any time. When I was little, I saw my dad beat up to a pulp, racially attacked. I saw him crawling down the street because he couldn't see. And a year later, he passed away. Just, you know, but it's like, how are we going to humanize ourselves individually? Like when I walk down the street and I see a bunch of black youths, I don't just put my head down. I say to my son, greet them, greet everybody. Do you know what I mean? It's like we're not humanizing ourselves. It's like, you know, how are you guys? How are you today? What's been happening? And the response that you get back is like, how are we going to change anything if we don't change within our community? We don't love each other within our community. How are we going to change anything if we don't even like each other on just a day-to-day basis? You know, we're not agitating at political levels. You know, we're not doing the basics, just the basics of agitating. It's like we're just going to go about our life just to get past. I'll just, you know, we got a little money, we can spend a little money, we can go on a little holiday. Yeah, we think life is good. Life is not going to be good for your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren, if you just think about today. And I think that's what, because we're now westernized, is that how our mentality is thinking, on that westernized mentality. We're not there yet, we're not ready yet. So how are we going to agitate?
No, well said then.
Sorry, go on. After you.
Yes, nice one, Angela. I agree with everything you said on there. I think everyone on this panel has bags and bags and bags of stories to talk about racism or how they were treated or how they felt in workplace and it's still ongoing. And the scariest thing is it's going to trickle down to my sons and their kids. And we're not nowhere near like what Skylar said earlier. It's like if we're not coming together as a community now or in the near future, where are we going to be? We're still going to be that. I can't believe the other day we was urban, now we're BAME. What we're going to be next? What we're going to be next? Enough is enough, like what Nathan was saying. It's like, it's rigged against us. And of course, you can fight as much as you want and they'll still do whatever. But if you got your people behind you, they can't do that. They can't.
How do you get your people behind you?
Like what we're doing here right now.
Yeah, but I think we talked about in a previous conversation, like we've got to remember racism is a social construct. Like it is designed and it has been designed very well. And that is why at every opportunity, I think we talked about in an earlier conversation about how you know, even black households have been divided, whereby a woman can claim money if she doesn't have a man in the house, doesn't have a partner. Like how, you know, our black youths are being given weapons and taught to turn against each other. Like there's so much of this that we have to unpick. And it's where do we start?
Well, there's a difference between where racism comes from And there's a difference between that and the ideology that will somehow allow Black people to unite. What ideology will actually unite Black people? And even if we do unite, even if we do find that ideology that allows us to unite, what if they turn against us? What if they say, you know, because I mean, we are a minority in this country. What if they say we've had enough of you guys? Then what?
Well, we're still stronger together, right? We're still
No,
stronger
I
together.
agree with you.
They're doing
Mike,
it already.
I
They're
agree with
doing it
you
already.
completely.
Yeah.
We know there's been a lot of kind of undercover deportation, and COVID is the excuse.
Oh yeah, of course.
The construct is to keep us a minority.
Yes, that too. But what I'm saying to you is, what ideology will unite us?
I don't know, because we can't even agree on things like racism. I think it's like putting a band-aid over it and going, I think you have to treat the whole problem, the whole thing, the thing as it is. I don't think you can treat part of it. I think you have to treat the whole thing.
But how do we do that?
How do you do
I
that?
agree that you know, we need to treat the whole thing and we can't put a band-aid on it. But what Ange said, I think her name is Ange, sorry, is just a basic principle of any of the people that are privy to, in this group rather, that parents or grandparents came over in the Windrush era. Do you see what I mean? Where you did say good morning, good night. You were aware of what the young people were doing on the street. You did speak to them as well. You didn't just ignore them. You went to their parents. There was this sense of it takes a community to rear a child. We have to do that. We have to heal. Do you see what I mean? In the process of also going to work and doing all of these things, we do have to do all of that. And on top of it, start mobilizing, do your bit. There are all of these things. We can't look at one little bit in isolation, because I do agree with what Nelson said. Like, there is a difference. Racism is racism, yes, but there is a difference between fearing for your life every day